Good day, all. My name is Amanda Bate, and I am excited to be part of the Change Schools TCK Summit. I am the founder of Bate Consulting, which is a college admissions firm that helps students figure out their post-secondary plans. I am also the co-host and co-founder of TCK Chat, which is an online Twitter community dedicated to discussing issues related about the third culture experience. I am excited today to have the chance to just share a little bit of my thoughts on this issue of the TCK and identity. It's an issue that I have thought a lot about in my own life as a TCK and as a CCK. A little bit about my own background. I was born in the United States, and I'm presently now based in the US. I was born to parents who had moved to the US to further some professional and educational goals. When I was about 10 years old, my parents determined that they wanted to return to their country of origin. In their case, that would be Cameroon in West Africa. But my parents are part of the English minority, and they ultimately chose to relocate to Yaoundé, which is the capital of Cameroon, and also part of the French majority. So at 10 years old, I relocated with them and pretty much had a variety of educational experiences across the board. I was homeschooled for my first half year in the country. I was in a local school, which you can imagine I was without a doubt seen as the American kid. I was in an American international school during my middle school years, and then ultimately graduated from an international missionary high school. So the issue of identity has been something I've thought about. It's something that I've wrestled with. I started, when I think about my earliest memories, thought about it even as young as elementary school when I was in the States, before I'd even made my first move. Because at that point, my parents and I didn't share the same passport. My parents were living in a country that was not their home country. And so I was already in this mode of code switching. My American, or trying to be my most American self when I was in elementary school, and then coming home and living in this world that was not necessarily centered around American identity, but was centered around a very distinct Cameroonian identity. The term TCK to me is about an experience. I look at it less as of a label and more about an experience. It's about understanding and giving voice to the life experiences and the opportunities that have happened within your childhood. Of course, it's marked by at least one international move. I think it's also marked by being in an environment where you are readily and continually impacted by the people who come in and out of your life as a result of moves. And so I most certainly identify with that, having been someone who has moved and having been someone in an environment where a lot of people are moving around me, and sort of the culture that is created around that. That being said, it's sometimes hard for me to necessarily articulate whether or not TCKs have a certain set of values that are common. On one hand, I think that there are things that we definitely share. On a very superficial level, many of the TCKs I know and many of the TCKs I work with have a love for travel. They have a love for, I'm going to say, international affairs, meaning that they may have a great interest in what's happening, at the very least in the parts of the world that they lived in. I'm not necessarily going to say global affairs, because for some TCKs who grew up in sub-Saharan Africa, their love and passion as far as when they think on the international stage is for things that are happening in Africa. They may not necessarily be considering things that are happening in other parts of the world. But at the very least, there's a love for things that are happening in maybe the parts of the world that they are familiar with and that they have a connection to. I think that TCKs often are very, very adaptable and do the code switching that I mentioned earlier. They know how to go in and out of environments. They know how to navigate what's going on in the dominant culture. Sometimes they can be very perceptive in terms of what's happening in a non-dominant culture, just because they're used to knowing what it's like to not always be a perfect fit for what's going on around them. They know what it's like to be different and can be sensitive to that. So I see that. I see a sense of flexibility. And I often see a desire as a result of their childhood of wanting to have an impact on the social good. And that comes from a variety of places, from their own experiences, I think, as service, and their own experiences in terms of maybe seeing the work that their parents did. Without a doubt, I have seen a heightened awareness for caring about others and caring and having a passion for issues. And I think that that is a huge marker of the TCK identity. That being said, that's at a very general level. TCKs are different. I think this is a big hallmark of this. No TCK has had the same exact experience. Even TCKs that come from the same families have unique experiences from their siblings. My experiences with the members of my family are different due to age and time of moving and all of that. And so in that regard, there are, I think, a lot of nuances to the TCK experience. And I think for me, my experience is also clouded by what it means to be a TCK of someone who's of Black identity, and who sees themselves as a Black woman, and how I see myself as a Black woman in the world. And so that makes it a little bit difficult for me to say, are there a common set of values? Because there are places where I can see that my values may be radically different from others just because of the experiences that I've had. TCKs can really, though, take their experiences and just put it out in the world. Those things and the ability to be adaptable is a skill set that is needed everywhere. The ability to be flexible is a skill set that's needed everywhere. Not only can it be used in an educational environment, not only can it be used in a professional environment, it's really something that I think could be at the forefront of challenging some of the social problems that we see in communities, both regionally and internationally. The great thing about TCKs is that they often are willing to think outside of the box because they've lived outside of the box. They're willing to pull on their cultural experiences from the places that they've lived and maybe transfer it and apply it in an area or in a organization or in a region that has never even considered using those skill sets. And I think that TCKs should be proud of the fact that they've had those opportunities and not be scared to use them. Many of the change makers that we've seen in the world are truly change makers because they have taken the opportunity to pull from their experiences living cross-culturally and apply that. Um, TCKs, I think, who are growing up in this age have such an awesome access to technology. Technology has just made it in a way that we can connect with people in the ways that previous generations, I think, would be absolutely envious. So, for example, TCK chat really came out of a discussion, or ongoing discussions rather, that Ellen Mahoney of Sea Change Mentoring and I had. We both, as adult TCKs, as folks who come from counseling and mentoring and advising backgrounds, really were talking about a lot of issues that were of interest and of interest to both of us, and that we both had passions for. And what was great about the discussions that we were having is that even though I grew up in sub-Saharan Africa and Ellen grew up in Asia, we could find common ground and find discussion points that we thought, hey, these might be things that we want to open up to the rest of the TCK community, particularly those who are younger than us and those who are just emerging out of their adolescent years and entering adulthood. And so we just took what were ongoing Skype conversations and opened it up to a greater community. And it's been the most amazing experience. And I tell that story because I would say one of my goals with TCK Chat was that as third culture kids read and participate in the discussions, that it would just blow open the opportunities for research, so that we move into that next wave of TCK research that talks about the nuances of the experience, the nuances of what it means to be a TCK. So what does it mean to be a Black TCK in this current world? What does it mean to be an Arab TCK? What does it mean to be a TCK who, may come from a background that has really not been represented in research? And that's really just one way to show how you can do something small and it can go out into the world and have an impact. And so we see that with TCK Chat. And so those are really the ways I think about it when we look at TCK experiences and who they are, is that they can take advantage of technology to research and see what's out there, to see who's doing what, to see how they can lend their voice if they see voices are missing at the table, to see how they can develop project and ideas that no one else is talking about. And I think just a quick look of the people that I'm connected to really tells me that there are TCKs who are doing all kinds of things, whether it's Tayo Roxon with Use Your Difference, whether it's the research that Danal Tanu's doing, whether it is the conversations we're having on Twitter. These are TCKs who are taking pieces of their identity and saying, hey, let me put it out there for the world to see. And I think that other TCKs coming along behind them hopefully will be inspired. My biggest advice for TCKs when it comes to identity is this. The beautiful thing is that there is no deadline. Honest to goodness. I think identities are continually forming by the experiences that you have. You explore certain areas of your identity deeper. You may let some pieces of your identity go. But it's okay, especially for those TCKs that are in their 20s and in their teen years. It's okay if you're still trying to figure it out. I've been trying to figure mine out for a long time, and it's only starting to gel. And I'm okay with that. Be comfortable in the journey, be comfortable and be present in who you are. Allow yourself to feel things. I think often as TCKs, we don't let ourselves stay in the present. We're always future oriented, and that's a nature of being in a transient community. But be present and be okay in learning that it may take you a while to figure out how you see yourself, and that it is no one else's place to label you of who you're going to be or what you should be. That is your job. And if you're still working it out, that's okay. So don't ever, ever let anyone tell you you have to be something that you aren't comfortable with being.